how's it going? My name's Joe, and over the last weekend, Kansas City had its largest annual comic book convention called Planet Comic Con. This year at Planet Comic Con there were a lot of celebrities and actors there signing autographs. There were a lot of vendors who were selling all kinds of things, from toys to action figures to high-end collectibles, comic books, trades, graphic novels, artwork, even apparel and household items that were comic book themed. One of my favorite aspects of going to any comic book convention is getting my comics signed by the artists and writers who created them. And this year I was really excited that Chris Claremont was there. He's one of my all-time favorite Marvel writers, definitely my favorite X-Men creator. I was really thrilled to get his autograph on some of my books. Alright, so the first thing I did was I got some books signed by Chris Claremont. And this is God Loves, Man Kills. This is the story that X-Men 2 is loosely based on. There's his signature there. And then this is Days of Future Past. Obviously there was a movie based on this one too. There's his signature. And here's an old softcover trade of the Dark Phoenix saga. He signed it there. And then here's a nice hardcover version of Life Death, signed. Right, here's my copy of Mutant Genesis. This is a pretty nice hardcover version. This is written by Chris Claremont and drawn by Jim Lee. And there's his signature there. And then this is the first Wolverine solo miniseries collected in a nice hardcover book. And this was what the second solo Wolverine movie was based on, loosely, where he goes to Japan. This was drawn by Frank Miller. Alright, so this is Marvel Visionaries. This is kind of like a greatest hits for Chris Claremont. And this is a really, really nice book. I got this for like $6 or $7 at a local shop, which I think is a steal. There's this autograph right there. It's got, some Daredevil stuff, some Iron Fist. There's, of course, his X-Men stuff, like little bits of the Dark Phoenix saga and the Wolverine solo series, but there's also some New Mutants and Excalibur and Avengers stuff in here. And this is a really, really nice collection. So, anyways, I highly recommend this book if you get a chance to pick it up. But, they say never meet your heroes, and Chris Claremont really proved that wrong. He was super nice. I got to his line right as he was setting up, and so I only had like 4 or 5 people ahead of me. But it would have been one of the better lines to have to wait in, because he was telling all these cool stories, and he was really funny and charming, and talking about how he'd met Hugh Jackman and Famke Janssen from the X-Men movies. And in fact, one of the guys in line in front of me mentioned that he'd wish that they would have had the characters wear their comic book costumes in the movies, and he said that he didn't think that would translate very well to the screen. And I still disagree with that, but I wasn't going to argue with him. And I'm sure he's heard it before, but I mentioned that I always assumed that Wolverine's hairstyle was hat hair from his mask. So, anyways, but I got a picture with him. Alright, here's my collection of Dawn comics signed by Joseph Michael Linsner. And I grew up in the 90s, man, and I was reading Wizard magazine a lot. And that's where I got turned on to this guy and his artwork. And I've always been a big Frank Frazetta fan. So, fantasy style artwork with sexy, voluptuous, half-naked women, really appeals to me. Anyways, he was really, really cool, really nice guy. I got there early on Friday, and right after I got my books signed by Chris Claremont, I saw that Joseph Michael Linsner was setting up his booth, and so I got these signed pretty early on in the show, and was able to run back to my car and drop off most of the heavier stuff that I brought, so that was really cool. But anyways, like I said, really nice guy, great artist, good writer. You know, I like these stories a lot too. So anyways, really happy to have met him finally. Alright, this is a hardcover version of a miniseries called Claws with Wolverine and Black Cat teaming up. And this was drawn by Joseph Michael Linsner, and I got his signature there. And I feel like a real jackass because I totally spaced it off. But this was also written by Jimmy Palmiotti, who was at the convention. I actually had some other things signed by him, and I just didn't even think about this one for some reason. So hopefully he'll come back to Kansas City again sometime, and I'll remember to get this one signed by him as well. So one of the things I like about Palmiotti as a writer is that his writing's pretty light, fast-paced action, and it's usually really fun. So there's some really cool sketches and concept art in here, and it doesn't feel like filler because it's so cool to look at. But anyhow, so there's a sequel to this also that I haven't picked up yet, but I'm meaning to. So finally I bought this print by Joseph Michael Linsner. This is Harley Quinn. I'm sure it was used for a variant comic book cover because of the blank space above her head there, but I'm not 100% sure. I really like this a lot. This was the only Harley Quinn print that he had that had any other characters on it, so I really like how it's got Batman and Ivy and the Joker there, and I think that the image with the angel and the devil on her shoulder is pretty clever. So I was a little upset that he didn't have more prints for sale, more artwork. Of course I would love to get a commission piece or something sometime, but just didn't have the money for it this year. But maybe he'll come back to Kansas City again and I'll be able to get one then. But really happy with this Harley Quinn print that I picked up. Alright, so next I hit up Jason Aaron. Jason Aaron is one of my favorite comic book writers, and just so happens that he's local in Kansas City. He writes the Mighty Thor. This is the Jane Foster Thor. I really enjoy that. I think it's really cool. Yeah, I asked him one time if turning Thor into a woman was something that he came up with on his own organically, or if it was something that came down from Marvel editorial, and because it happened around the same time that Sam Wilson took over for Cap, and there were some other characters that were going through a metamorphosis or whatever at the time, and so I wondered if that was an editorial type decision to add more diversity, and he said no. He said that he came up with that on his own, but they timed it so that she would come out as Thor around the same time as the other characters were changing. So, but I really like this a lot. The artwork's really dynamic. It's really highly detailed. The panel layout's really good. So, you know, it's fantastic. I really love that run on the Mighty Thor. And then this is the Unworthy Thor. This is like a little mini-series about the Odin son and what he's been doing, and basically he finds the ultimate Thor's hammer, and I think that he's probably capable of wielding it if he wanted to. I'm not for sure, but anyways, this is a really cool mini-series that takes place after Secret Wars 2 or whatever. Anyways, it's really cool. The artwork's amazing in this. And then this is just a handful of issues, Star Wars, Jason Aaron's Star Wars run that I had signed. And I have the full run of Mighty Thor and of the Star Wars, and I just pick out ones with that I like especially, or ones that have particularly cool covers for him to sign, rather than having him, you know, sign my entire run and take up a lot of his time. But anyways, but I really like these, especially these Stuart and Monin Star Wars covers, and that's why I had those signed. But Jason Aaron, like I said, he's one of my favorite comic book writers that's working today, and I really like his stuff a lot. He's always seems like a pretty nice guy. Every time I have him sign some books for me, he always shows up at these local conventions. Okay, so finally on Friday I picked up a couple of older DC Comics figures. This is a Parasite from the DC Superheroes line that Mattel did. This is a precursor to DC Universe Classics, and this was kind of back when Mattel gave a shit. He's got really nice paint wash and really unique sculpted detail and stuff, and I've been kind of holding off on this figure because I'd rather have had a more classic version of Parasite, which to me is like the you know, more regular body with the green trunks is kind of what I think of as a classic Parasite, and I still might get around to doing a custom version, but I got this guy for like $15, so I thought that was a pretty decent price, and you know, this is you know, he's pretty cool, pretty unique, and this actually looks like a guy who could give Superman a fight, you know, so he's a pretty good looking figure so far. I need to open him up here and check him out a little bit more, but also I got this Catwoman from the DC Direct Nightfall series, and basically I've got the Icons Catwoman in this costume like on pre-order, but I bet that's probably going to be canceled. Like I don't know, it seems like DC Icons has kind of gone into the toilet. A lot of the figures have been canceled, and it seems like they're gearing more towards like multi-packs or whatever, like that Superman Doomsday 2-pack that they showed off a while back. So I don't really have much hope that the Icons Catwoman is actually going to see release. So, but I got this figure instead, and basically I have a custom of this costume for Catwoman, but I'm kind of getting to the point where I'm not happy with it anymore, so I decided to replace it, and I ended up paying $30 for this, which is less than half of what I've seen it on eBay recently, so I'm happy enough with that. Hopefully she turns out to be a good figure after I open her up. Lastly, on Friday I went to this booth where they were advertising the Wonder Woman movie coming out on June 2nd this summer, and I was really surprised they didn't want an email or a phone number or anything. They were just giving these posters away for free to advertise the movie, so you know, it's alright. I don't think I'm going to get it framed or anything. Might get a better poster later on or something if I really like the movie a lot, but you know, free little poster. If nothing else, I'll just hang it in the garage or something. So pretty much the first thing I did on Saturday was run to go get Summer Glau's autograph. And we got there, they were just about to shut the line down, and then one of the staff members came up and said, well, she'll take 10 more people, and so I just barely got in on time, and didn't have to wait in line very much at all, so that was really cool. And I took my daughter with me on Saturday, and she was super sweet to my daughter and I, and she wrote "No power in the verse can stop me," and I think that's really cool. I'm a big Firefly fan. Of course, she was also in the Sarah Connor Chronicles, and she was in Arrow. She was Ravenger in Arrow, and I think she's really great. I would love to see her in more TV series and movies and things like that. So wish her all the best, and like I said, she was super nice. So really happy to add this to my collection of Firefly autographs. So I also got my He-Man ThunderCats crossover comics signed by Freddie Williams II, who did the art on this book. And he also did the art in a Batman Turtles crossover that came out like a year and a half or 2 years ago. And I got all those signed by him also at either Kansas City Comic-Con or Planet Comic-Con. But anyways, he's a really great artist. I just love his artwork, and it's well suited for He-Man and ThunderCats especially, I think. But actually, Freddie Williams is another guy who's local, and a friend of mine works at a local news station, and they interviewed him for the morning show one time a while back, and so my friend got me a signed print of one of the Turtles Batman crossovers. So I thought that was really, really cool. And those parts of things like that are in your collection are kind of more special than, you know, even an expensive toy or something. So really happy with that. Freddie Williams is a really great illustrator and super nice guy. Every time I've had him sign comics, he was always really gracious. And also, if you're interested, check out Red Letter Media YouTube channel. They're the guys who do those Plinkett reviews of the Star Wars prequels that are really funny. But they also do a show where they watch bad movies, and Freddie Williams has made guest appearances on that a few times. So go check that out. So also on Saturday, I was walking around. I found a Valiant Comics booth, and I'm not familiar with Valiant Comics at all, except for seeing. I remember seeing pictures of Exo Manowar and in Wizard magazine back when I was a kid, but I really don't know anything about them at all. But I am not very happy with most of the DC stuff that I'm reading lately. And I'm reading a lot of Marvel and a lot of Image, and I'm happy with the amount of those that I'm reading. So I thought maybe I'd give some Valiant Comics a shot. And these are trade paperbacks. The cover price on these is $9.99, and they had a deal where if you bought 5 of them, you got them for $30. So I thought that was pretty cool. These are all in really, these are all brand new condition or whatever, so thought I'd give them a shot. This first one's Dr. Mirage, and like I said, I have no idea what any of these stories are about. I just picked up some ones that I thought looked interesting for different reasons. And then this is Exo Manowar, and then this is Quantum and Woody. I think it might be similar to in the same vein of Blue Beetle and Booster Gold, not for sure, but anyways, it looks like it might be funny. And then this, I assume that's pronounced Ray. I'm not 100% sure, but the artwork in this is just phenomenal. It looks really, really nice. So anyways, I picked that one up just based on the artwork alone. But and then I also picked up this book called Faith. So I don't know. I'm gonna give Valiant a shot, and hopefully I'll really dig it, and start picking up some of their comics on a monthly basis. So the last thing I did on Saturday was get Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor's autographs on some of my comics. This is called The Pro. This is about a prostitute who gains superpowers, and it's this is for adults only. This is a mature only comic, but this is very, very funny. I had a hard time finding this, because I didn't know about it until long after it had come out, and I ended up eventually finding this at a comic book shop in Chicago on my honeymoon. So anyways, this is it's like an 8th printing. It's not worth a damn, but I got it signed, and it means a lot to me, so I really like it a lot. This Harley Quinn book, this is the second or third time that I bought a Harley Quinn book to try and get into it, and I just couldn't for whatever reason. I think they're trying to be like Deadpool or something, and it's just not really my cup of tea. So the artwork's cool, I like most of their stuff, but this one just really didn't do it for me. But I do really, really like that cover though, so I might keep it, or I might try and sell it on eBay eventually if I think I can get some money out of it. So this All-Star Western though, I am really, really happy with. I've always thought this was a great book. I have the whole run of All-Star Western, but I didn't know which ones to get signed, and and so I was going through them, and So I ended up getting the first issue and the last issue signed, just so I wouldn't take up everybody's time getting, 34 issues of it signed by Jimmy Palmiotti. But anyways, this is a really, really cool story. If you're interested in Western comics at all, there's like time travel, and there's a lot of Batman stuff mixed in, and like Booster Gold and Swamp Thing make appearances in this, so it's pretty wacky. But it's like all Jimmy Palmiotti's writing. It's pretty fun and fast-paced action, and I like All-Star Western a lot. And this autograph is kind of extra special because Jimmy Palmiotti did a little sketch of Jonah Hex with Sharpie, and I've got a handful of things signed by different people where they do similar things to this, and I always get a real kick out of that. I think that's really, really special. So pretty much the first thing I did on Sunday was go get Spencer Wilding's autograph. And Spencer Wilding is the actor who played Darth Vader in Rogue One. Also, he was the blue alien dude who was listening to Hooked on a Feeling with Star-Lord's headphones in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And in that you can, because he's just wearing blue makeup, basically, you can tell that it's him, you can recognize him a little bit easier. But anyways, he wrote, "To Joe, may the Force be with you, Darth Vader," signed his name, and then the little R1 there for Rogue One. And this will be really cool. I have a collection of Star Wars autographs. It's mostly the men behind the masks, so to speak. It's characters whose faces you never saw, or actors whose faces you never saw, like Anthony Daniels and Peter Mayhew, and the only one that I'm missing from the original trilogy is David Prowse, so this will be a good stand-in if I don't ever get David Prowse's autograph. So Spencer Wilding was a super nice guy, and really happy to add this to my collection. I'm kind of backed up on my reading as it is, but I decided to buy some more trade paperbacks and stuff while I was at the show, and because you can get such a good deal on them. Most of these I got for about half cover price, I think. So this is Batman Arkham Killer Croc. This is a compilation of Killer Croc stories throughout the decades, I guess, and from some of his first appearances to his most modern appearances. And this is part of a series. They've done Two-Face and the Riddler and Poison Ivy and Scarecrow, and anyways, this is pretty cool because I don't really have a whole hell of a lot of Killer Croc stories. So then this is Chrononauts. I don't really know anything about this except that it's written by Mark Miller, and I really like Mark Miller. Secret Service. I love Red Sun, and I like most of the Kick-Ass stuff, except for Kick-Ass 2, I guess. But Starlight I thought was great. Jupiter's Circle. Really big Mark Miller fan, so or Mark Millar, sorry. Anyway, so I'm excited to read that and check that out. Also Super Crooks. Super Crooks is Kick-Ass too. So this is Low by Rick Remender. This is Volume 2. I have Volume 1, and I've just loved it. And the story's kind of like an adventure story. It's about either the Earth starts getting too close to the sun, or the sun starts burning hotter or something, and so instead of leaving planet Earth, people live below the surface of the ocean. And this is like a kind of a family adventure story. I think the father gets killed by pirates, and then the wife and the children kind of get separated and reunite years later. And anyways, it's real interesting, and I'm looking forward to reading more of that story. This is Detective Comics Volume 5, Gothtopia, and I already had this like in individual issues, but this is probably one of my favorite story arcs or whatever from the Batman Detective Comics run in the New 52, and mostly because of the artwork by Jason Fabok. It just looks gorgeous. So
I think I got this for like $5 or $6, so I was like, well, screw it, you know, it'd be easier than just digging out my old comics and rereading them, you know, out of my long boxes and pulling them out of the bags and boards and all that shit. So I thought that'd be a little bit simpler, so I could go back and check out that artwork again. And then I got Old Man Logan, another Mark Millar. I've never read Old Man Logan. It's one of the only high-profile Wolverine books that I've never read, so I liked the movie fairly well, so I'm excited to check that out and see which one I like better, I guess. Then finally I got this Batman. This is Shadow the Bat. This was a kind of another comic book series in the 90s. There was, you know, Batman, Detective, and then there was Shadow of the Bat. And I read these and sold them off years ago, and this is, I think, a collection of the first 12 issues, maybe. But anyway, so be a trip down memory lane to check those out again. So pretty happy. I think I paid, like I said, I don't think I paid more than half cover price for any of these. So that's one of the good things about these conventions. You can usually find some pretty good deals.
So the last figure I bought at Comic-Con this year was Darwin Cook Batman from New Frontier. And this is actually a repaint of the single-carded New Frontier Batman. This one came in a box set with 3 other Batman figures for Batman's 75th anniversary. That's the figure stand that he came with. And these came in small tin boxes. But this set was broken up, and the vendor was selling the individual figures. And I got this one for $15, which is cheaper than I've ever seen the Darwin Cook New Frontier, like single-carded Batman. And I really like Batman's characterization in New Frontier. And there's a reason why he went from the more first appearance style costume to this more Silver Age costume. And anyways, I really like that explanation in the context of that story anyways. But this figure has pretty basic articulation. He's got a lot of movement in his neck, but it's hindered by this Adam's apple or whatever that is there. I don't quite understand. It always looks like he's got his chest puffed out and he's looking up, though, unfortunately. But he's got ball socket shoulders, not a lot of movement there. Single jointed elbows. Nothing at the torso or the waist. He's got swivel hips. He's got a swivel joint here at the seam of his trunks, and single jointed knees. But you know, this is not a figure that you buy because you want to put him in dynamic poses. You know, it's kind of like one of those designer series figures before they did a lot of those designer series. But this is pretty cool, and he had a little paint blemish there on his chest. I used a Mr. Clean Magic Eraser to get that off, so that's why it looks a little glossy. Under normal lighting conditions, you don't notice it, but I've got some bright lights on this Batman figure now, so really happy to add him to my collection finally for such a good price. I also picked up this Black Widow coffee mug for my wife. It's nothing major, but yeah, there's just not a lot of Black Widow stuff, unfortunately, and that's one of the few comic book characters that she really likes a lot, and I've gotten her to read some Black Widow comics too, so I thought this was pretty cool, even though we don't really need any more coffee mugs. We've got tons of them, but I thought this was really neat. I like these kinds of things a lot, so I picked that up for her, and she thought that was pretty neat. So this might be my favorite thing that I picked up all weekend. This is a print by an artist named Jim Steranko, and I got him to sign it. It says, "To Joe, it's best regards, Steranko." But this is the original concept art for Indiana Jones, like the first ever concept art. He said that he was really funny. It was hilarious. It would have been cool to stand there and listen to him talk shit all day. But anyways, but he was telling me that he got a call from George Lucas, and he and Steven Spielberg had written 30 pages, and all they knew was that they wanted him to wear a bomber jacket and a hat like Humphrey Bogart wore in Treasure of Sierra Madre. And other than that, Jim Steranko came up with the imagery. And so he was the one who came up with the bullwhip. So Indiana Jones would not have had a bullwhip if it hadn't been for Jim Steranko. But anyways, I thought this was gorgeous. You know, I just love this. And, you know, obviously it doesn't look like Harrison Ford, but this was long before they'd even finished the script for the movie. And so obviously they hadn't cast it or anything yet. But, you know, there's no mistaking that it's Indiana Jones, you know. So anyways, I've always loved this. I've seen this before, you know, and I always thought it was really, really cool. And so to be able to get a print of it, and not only that, but signed by the artist, I think is really, really awesome. And I think, like I said, I think this might be one of my favorite things that I got over the weekend at the convention.
So that was my haul from Planet Comic Con this year. I don't know if you've noticed or not my Holy sweatshirt, but this is kind of like a real cheap, easy Luke Cage cosplay idea that I had. Maybe I'm not necessarily Luke Cage, but a Luke Cage facilitator in the Netflix series, which I really, really loved. The whole community rallies behind Luke Cage while he's on the run and falsely accused of all these different crimes, and you know, regular everyday people are walking around in holy sweatshirts like this to throw off the cops. And so maybe I'm more like one of those people. But anyways, another aspect of Comic-Con that I really enjoy is all the cosplayers. And they put a lot more time and effort and money and into their costumes than I have. And unfortunately, I didn't get as many pictures as I would have liked to have, but I had my daughter with me part of the time, and, you know, trying to juggle her and comic books that I was trying to get signed, and, you know, this and that. It was hard to snap pictures sometimes, but there was a lot of really cool costumes, and I got pictures of some really cool ones. So I really look forward to Planet Comic Con every year, more so than Christmas and my birthday and the 4th of July combined even. And this year was pretty good. They had a lot of really great creators there, some celebrities and stuff. It seems like it's getting bigger and bigger every year, which is a good thing, but you know, the price keeps going up every year, unfortunately. It was pretty expensive just to attend this year, and the parking is always a total nightmare. In fact, I had some friends that typically go that skipped out this year entirely because they were so upset about last year and the year before. It's getting bigger every year, and the staff members, they are doing their best to adapt, but they change the way that things are done every year, it seems like, to try and accommodate the bigger crowds, and they always kind of fall short even though they try really hard. But a lot of times it seems like a cluster. Overall, I'm really happy I went. I always have a really nice time there, and It's a really cool opportunity to meet comic book creators, especially, I think. So if you're in the Kansas City area, you know, next year maybe in the springtime, if you're in or around Kansas City, check out Planet Comic Con on online, you know, and find out what the dates are and stuff. And maybe I'll see you there next year. So, anyways, until then, take care.